Hey everybody, welcome to another video. Really excited to share with you today what I've been working on. I know I've mentioned a few times that I'm working on a multi-level, fully playable mountain. We'll add some photos and video maybe in the corner there while I'm talking about it. I've completed 3 of the 5 levels as we've gone. I still have 2 more of those levels to build. And there's going to be definitely lots of videos coming out for the various techniques and things that I'm using here, but really enjoying it so that each of these, like I say in the video there in the corner, are playable. Today is really going to be about this dungeon layer to the mountain, which is playable LED lava. A lot of different things used in here. We're going to have to cut this video into 2 parts. It was just too long. I kind of want the videos in this channel to be a little bit of crafting along with me, you know, lots of cuts, lots of edits to keep it moving along, but at the same time allow you to really observe kind of what's happening, how you're holding a tool or whatever, some of the things that maybe, you know, an 8-minute video isn't going to cover. So we'll see how that goes over. But anyway, so very excited to share this build with you today, or at least the first part. We'll do it right up until the resin point today. And then the part 2 will be when we get into the resin and finishing that off. So anyway, so really looking forward to sharing this with you today. This dungeon layer for our mountain lava build, a lot of different techniques in here. Part 1 is going to take us up to the resin stage, and then part 2 will go from resin to finish. Really excited to share this with you. Check it out. Turn on the Proxon. I'm going to turn it up to 3. I'm going to be using a 2-inch foam for this. All right, so there's our core piece. Now I'm going to cut out an inside segment to that. Just the only thickness I'm keeping in mind is just thick enough so that those walls are not going to break easily on us later. I also tried to make sure that this piece could be cut all in one chunk by not making it too long to hit the back of the Proxon there. Okay, so we've ended up with an inside and outside. What I want to do is glue this in place, raising it up, probably about there. And we're going to put this aside for a minute. Pull up our scrap pieces. All I'm doing here is we need a little bit of height, and you'll see why in a little bit. Perfect. Okay. Most of my builds would be using 1-inch foam, but this mountain I've been doing using 2-inch foam. One of the things to watch for when you're pushing on this, the slower you go, the more accurate your cut's going to be. As soon as you start pushing, you'll notice that my wire gets a little bit bent by the material. When I stop, that wire comes back, which sometimes moves in a predictable, but not exactly the direction that you wanted it to. So just have more patience than I'm having right now when the cuts matter. In this case, they don't. Now I'm going to cut out an inside run to that because this is only going to be an exterior piece. It's going to be a shell around the outside, basically, to hide stuff inside, which will illuminate a resin floor. Let's get the hot glue gun. I have realized that these glue sticks, the clarity is not very good. So where I was using it for ice, would have been nice if I would have had a clearer one. It looked like the Gorilla Glue sticks might be clearer, so I've ordered some, and we'll try those next time. Okay, I think we're ready. Nice firm grip on there, because it will move around quite a bit on you while that glue is drying. Next piece will be this guy. Trying to, again, line up. and give it some pressure. If you can, run a finger along the glue on the outside, smooth it off. It's got to be a good 30-second hold. And that piece should be pretty much good to go. All right, so now the next piece would be to glue that onto this guy. Nice. Looks like we got the fit we wanted. Slightly too big. Perfect. Now, I wonder if I shouldn't do tacky glue for this one. I'm gonna do a combination of both. Always have pre-torn sheets of paper towel handy. Doesn't matter really to wipe away the excess glue, but it might make a slightly better seal. But I think we achieved what we wanted to. We've got a quick set that's going to stick nice and firm now, and then we've got a little more play time with the glue. Nice. Okay. So now we want to glue this up. Okay, so rookie mistake. Doesn't look like I got footage of when I smeared the glue around and applied that top ring down partway down, and then I used toothpicks to set it and kind of hold it in place. Ultimately, though, that wasn't enough. I ended up having to use the glue gun and go around the inside later in order to reinforce, or I think I went around the inside underneath in order to reinforce and strengthen that, as the glue was taking forever and kept shifting on me and I wanted to move on. So for last bits here, I'm just going to do a little bit of smearing in a second or two, and we'll just sort of take the glue that's dripping down around the outside and we'll smear it around a little bit just to try and even it out. But ultimately there was some dripping that came down the sides that looked really, really cool. I'll show you later in the build. It ended up looking pretty natural, and so I was pretty happy with it. It worked out really, really well. And here we go. Show you underneath where the lighting is going to fit. And what's going to fit there is these flashlights. I got them for 30 bucks on Amazon, pack of 16. They come with the batteries inside them that you need. Fantastic. Now we just got to make sure they're going to fit to be subset into the floor, not stick out past the bottom. And it looks like this is going to work great. And here we've taken about, I think, 12 of the 16 flashlights. We've spaced them out around. I want to make sure that we get a lot of good light that's coming up through the floor. I've done it before and I'm disappointed later by the amount of light, so I'm going to risk a little bit of overkill here. Okay, I'm going to give myself a little bit of placement here. I'm going to try and just create a bit of a ring where I like each of those flashlights. So the first thing I tried is I took my set of Forstner bits and I thought that maybe I could just very carefully drill a hole. I know that Forstner bits and foam never work great. They want to make the hole bigger. They want to bounce around no matter how carefully you're holding it. And turned out that was the case here. So didn't end up going with that method. Switch instead over to using a hot wire cutter. Coming up from underneath. Let's try it another way. Let's see what we learn the other way. Now this hot wire cutter, I am not very happy with. I might have mentioned that before. I'm not sure, but got it on Amazon. I'm sure I'll put the link up. Doesn't quite get hot enough, especially if you're using thicker foam. But let's see how we do. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to try and get through. Yeah, this might be the better solution. One thing I noticed with this one is that as the foam starts to stick to it, it becomes far less effective, so you got to wipe it off every time. Also, holding it straight is quite difficult because this the wire actually bends a fair amount. I'm sort of, I guess, pointing it at like maybe a 10-degree angle where I'm pushing the bottom forward more than the top, because I'm trying to compensate for the bend. So we are going to open up the tops of these holes a little bit more so the flashlight will pressure fit inside nicely, get a little bit more of a light spread rather than the concentrated piece there. So I'm going to now put that upside down. We're going to put a nice thick bead of hot glue right along this base piece here, because this keeps moving and I'm tired of waiting. Done. Now I'm going to do the same thing around the inside. This is way overkill. Like I say, I gotta move on. I just need it to grab. Keep in mind also, I need an absolutely perfect seal if I'm gonna pour resin in here, even in thin coats. Okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna put some Vallejo ground texture down here, and we're gonna also glue in some various thicknesses of ballast from Woodland Scenics in order to give it a little more texture, because I find this has got okay texture, but not great. All right, that's kind of the look we've got. Pretty happy with it. Might have been an even better play if I were to have coated the whole thing in the Blackmagic Craft mix and then let it dry and put the texture on top. But whatever, not a big deal. I'm going to try and put as much out here as I can and then just spread it around, because I've got that texture paint and I'd rather not mix the texture paint on my brush and get it back into the Blackmagic Craft mix that I have. Remember, a lot of the time when you're doing this, it doesn't look like anything. Oops. Doesn't look like anything really. And then there's a step later, texturing, painting, usually wash, and then boom, it comes to life. And so don't give up partway through saying, ugh, this looks terrible. Because right now this kind of does. Doesn't look like anything. Why would I call Mod Podge and black paint mixed together the Blackmagic Craft mix? Credit where credit's due. He may not be the first person to have ever done it, but that's where I learned it. All right, kind of liking how that's looking. Now let's mix in a little ballast. Brand new craft supplies. Happiness is. all from my local craft store. Whoops. Oh well, doesn't matter. And a little bit of fine. I kind of like how this is starting to look. For sure. Now, you could pour that all into a container instead of losing the pieces on the ground. But what I've been doing lately more is I've been finding that I can take the pieces that fall down, even if it's mixed with bits of styrofoam, and I can keep it in a bag that I just label sort of random sized. Or, well, you don't have to label it, but you know what I mean. So you can take all of this and in all of its craziness and just put it in a baggie, and trust me, you are gonna find a use for it. There is no question. Now we're going to put this out in the sun and let it try and accelerate some of its drying. All right, now here's what happened. We coated it with the Mod Podge and black paint mixture, then the ballast, then went outside, and I had a bit of an epiphany while I was trying to pick out which paint we were going to end up using. So went with this Rust-Oleum hammered paint and primer in one, any surface, any angle. Anyway, so what this does is it kind of gives a hammered finish like a barbecue or something made of metal might have. So what I ended up doing was making it look like it was simply cavernous, and I don't think I'm going to do much more with this. So what we did was a mixture of, and for some people who ask, can you spray paint foam? Yes, you absolutely can. I know that Black Magic Craft, I'm talking about him a lot today. He used it. I'll try and find the link to that video if I can, and explain that as long as you're far enough away, it applies the paint, but not the aerosol, which is just generally, or the whatever the delivery system is that will end up eating the foam. So I did in here. I did it from a good distance away to make sure that we didn't eat away at any of the foam. And just a side comment, look what the Rust-Oleum did. I don't know if you can catch it, but it is absolutely shining like diamonds on my side. And that really is interesting. I'm going to think about if we want to even do anything to that finish. It's so unique looking. But on the outside, I intentionally, in some spots, brought it up an awful lot closer. I think I should show it to you this way. Brought it up an awful lot closer and let it, in spots, I came close and came further away, which ate into the foam and created a little bit of a texture pattern, but then left other parts alone. And ultimately, at the end of the day, this camera angle doesn't show it great, so I might show photos of it later. But at the end of the day, that is a really cool cavernous look. If you were to cut a chunk out of a dungeon and pull it onto your table, which is effectively what we're doing, it might look something like this, which I thought was kind of interesting. So I think we are ready now to attach our flashlights, and then we're going to start putting in our first layer of resin next. Once these are in, the idea is they're never going to come out now, I think. I think I said earlier that it could be removable. That's not the plan anymore. And it was $35 for this total piece. I'm pretty happy with that even. That includes batteries and the flashlight. Let's take a look. Oh, a little bit too high. That was this one. into the little too far category. All right, let's glue these suckers in. All right, that's what we look like underneath. That's what we look like on top. We are ready for some resin. All right, so I think that's long enough time to spend together today. Part 2 will be coming out really soon. It's obviously already filmed, just got to get into the editing. So hope you enjoyed part 1. Please come back for part 2, and I invite you to come back and check that out. Thanks. Bye.